welcome back to All For United WFC. It's good to be back on here as a live show again. It's been a while. We've been kind of doing sporadic live shows, and I think the last live show we did was actually the three of us. There is supposed to be four of us. Keris is potentially joining in the next kind of hour or so. She's running a little bit late, but she did say to start without her. So we may or may not have a four-person panel again tonight, but we shall see. And no, Erling, that's not what it was. Everyone thinks it's that. We were genuinely just chatting away. Sees they realise what the time is. But there we go. James, yeah, I was a big fan of the thumbnail as well. So our James who makes the thumbnails, if you're watching this, yes, I was really happy with it. Not that I'm not like that with all of them. I love all the thumbnails that James produces, but this one in particular, I said to him, it's a little bit like Sky Sports, I thought, but there we go, something a little bit different. Anyway, WSL fixtures are out. We're going to start with that. We are going to talk about the incomings as well. We're going to talk a little bit about other things that have been going on. A lot's happened at United over the last kind of week or so with various reports. Dan Ashworth's done a little thing today. There's obviously trigger contract extensions, players have left, incomings. We've got a lot that's happened, but we're going to start with the fixtures. There's not too much to go into. I'm not going to ask you in terms of what your thoughts are on various things. I'm just going to ask you just a very vague, I guess, question. Baron, I'll start with you and just your thoughts on it. Really, we've got the full list now. We've finally got games to look forward to and to talk about. I mean, the obvious elephant in the room we'll talk about separately. The last three games, we will come to that in a second. But have you got anything, thoughts overall when you first saw that?
I think personally for me, it's always exciting when the fixtures come out, just because that the season's just around the corner now. It's not a million miles away. It's felt like it's ages and ages and ages away, and it is. Let's be clear, it's not till near the end of September that's finally going to kick off. But I think for me, yeah, really excited to see where the 22 games are going to fall. Obviously, we're going to be talking about this on another channel as well after this. And it's really interesting looking at all of the games and sort of seeing whereabouts they're going to be. But yeah, there's quite a few games, quite a few things that I'm looking forward to. The fact that we will almost unquestionably be again at 3 Premier League rounds will be quite interesting. I think the big thing for me is that the number of breaks that there's going to be. Enjoy the first 5 games, because those 5 games will run one after the other. And then after that, we won't have a series of that many games again. Like the biggest run of WSL games week after week consecutively won't be until the final 4 games of the season. So, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. But, yeah, can't wait for those first 5, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. And I see a comment about Ashworth's comments. I want to come back to that because I definitely think that's worth referencing as well, because he has done I think it's a very good column, as you mentioned there. So I definitely want to come back to that one. Just your thoughts overall. I said I'm going to ask you both a separate question about the final 3 in just a second, because obviously that's quite a big, quite a tough run, and you don't get much tougher than that. But overall, I think we both kind of said we wanted the home game first. So are you happy with kind of the first lot of fixtures that we've got at the moment? What's your overall thoughts on it all?
Yeah, to be fair, I'm really happy. We've got a nice run, I think, to start with. I actually quite like that we've got Chelsea early as well. I think that gets one of those games over and sort of done with, as they're always a little bit of a struggle for us. Hopefully now we've had the FA Cup win, we can kind of kick on from that and it won't be such a big deal anymore. But no, I'm really excited. I'm very much looking forward to having a nice opening day at home, because I actually missed the opening game last season as I was, well, actually, I think I was supposed to be racing. I think I was supposed to have a 10K and then I got a stomach bug instead anyway. So fingers crossed for a healthier start to this season. But yeah, that'll be nice. I'm just looking forward to getting back to it, to be honest. I'm looking forward to seeing my friends every weekend and to basically mooch around the country watching the team that I love.
I think that's the main thing for me, although it is still a couple of months away, obviously, until that first game of the season. But I think all I wanted, as Matt said, I just wanted a home game to start with, because obviously last season having Villa away, I just wanted to be back at LSV and having that kicking off home. Obviously, West Ham is not counting, you're thinking too far ahead, but West Ham should be should be a win, you would like to think, on paper with how the squads are looking, and obviously the second fixture. I actually agree with you. I'm glad we've got Chelsea away earlier in the season. I did say this on a previous show that the best time I feel to play some of the bigger teams early in the season before they've settled. Now, that goes for us as well. We may not have settled at that point either, but I do think that probably puts a little bit more not favour on it. We're not favourites going into it, but it does help us a little bit, I feel, on that one. I mean, I hope so. I tweeted that we should get a minimum of 12 out of the first 5. I think with who have we got? Everton away. Is it Brighton away and Spurs at home? I think in the first 5. We should, I think, be winning 4 of those. Obviously, and then Chelsea away, I kind of look at as a free hit, to be honest. It's like you want to go there. If you get a draw, I think that's pretty good. If you get the win, amazing. If you lose, it's disappointing, but it's not. I don't know. I don't think that would define our season if we lost at Chelsea. Are you back with us, Barry? You froze for a second there on mine.
I think
I froze.
I'm
still here.
That's not just me, is it?
No, I saw it too. I wasn't sure if you were taking the mick actually for a second, because I know that Barry would literally just try and like freeze and stay as still as possible. Mess with us.
No, not me, Captain. Not today. He said you two froze for me, so obviously something was going a bit funny. Was there a question there, Connor? I didn't hear one, so I'm just going to ask Jess how she's feeling about 5 trips to London this year.
Oh, God. Do the horrors of my life ever end? The answer is no. That being said, I am excited for Crystal Palace. I was saddened to then learn that they were from the south. I mean, I don't know where I actually thought they were based, to be honest. I think I obviously knew they were a London club, and I had just simply erased it from my mind in the hope that they had transported to at least the Midlands. But sadly, they did not. But you know what? It's fine. I've had some nice trips to London. I mean, not many, but just the one actually thinking about it, being a United fan. I've just had the one nice trip to London.
Wembley.
Yeah. The rest have been, I'd say, less than ideal. I mean, do you know what? Even the FA Cup final against Chelsea, I didn't mind. I had a nice day out. Now, Arsenal away, I hated every waking second of that day. Every second. There was not a single second that I think I enjoyed. There was maybe half a second when the game first kicked off and I was like, amazing, here we go. And then it was just like downhill. So, yeah, hopefully London this year is a more positive experience for me and I can stop beefing the Southerners so hard. So, you never know.
Fingers crossed. You've led us on nicely, obviously, talking about Arsenal away there, as Charlie has referenced, talking about love the running. That was the first thing. When I saw the fixture list, and I kind of had the brief, so to speak, and I was looking at it going, oh my life. Game week 20, 21, 22, Chelsea at home, City at home, Arsenal away, and ending our season at the Emirates. It's a bit annoying for me, really. I always like to end on a home game. But yeah, that's just a personal thing. Barry, what's your thoughts on that then? Because Charlie's saying she loves the running, and as she has kind of mentioned to us privately as well, that if we're in the fight, that does put it in our hands. That because they'll likely be the teams that we're competing with for maybe top 3 or potentially the title. Just throwing that out there, if we are there, they will be the teams also in that mix as well. So it does put us in our hands. But as I said to you kind of earlier, if we get to the FA Cup final as well, you've got to throw that into that mix as well. So that's potentially 4 massive games to end the season. I don't know, what's your kind of thoughts on that? Do you like it like that when they're all kind of bunched together? Would you prefer them a bit more spread out throughout the season, or?
Yes, I think for the most part, I kind of do. And I suppose the main reason for that is that's 50% of your big games, for want of a better term, the potential top 3 left until the very end, which means that your previous 19 games, only 3 of them are in games where you should technically struggle. Now, potentially. Now, I think where that matters is that season before last, when we came second, we had some good performances against City and Arsenal. it was Chelsea who let us down, and a couple of sort of dodgy results with draws where we weren't quite expecting to have them. I think if we get to the point where at the end of match week 19, we are there or thereabouts in the title race, it's massive. It's huge. If we're already a little bit behind, then it's got the potential to be devastating for us and could, as has been said earlier on in the comments, could well be us outside the top 4 again, which we would not want. If we're in the crazy place of actually being top of the league at the end of match week 19, then that's going to be a brand new, situation for us. And let's be brutally honest, it's either going to be the most wonderful 3 games ever, or we're all going to be sitting here crying this time next year, still crying about the inevitable run-in. But a couple of facts about it that I think will be quite interesting is that on match week 4, the top 6 from last season will all be playing each other. So Arsenal will be playing Chelsea, Liverpool will be playing City, and United will be at home to Spurs. But interestingly, that final weekend, although we sit here and talk about this as being a run-in for us, Chelsea will also have to face Liverpool, and Manchester City will be in action against Crystal Palace, which of course is, again, 5 of the top 6, missing out Spurs on that occasion in that final weekend. So, if Liverpool can do a similar sort of miracle as they did last season, we could end up with a really, really pivotal final weekend. And that's got to be a good thing. Surely that's what you want. We look at the excitement of last season with Man City and the run-in that they had. We want this. We want to be in a situation where the run-in's going to be, your favourite word, Connor, have a bit of jeopardy. And that will definitely be there. It's going to be jeopardy of Indiana Jones proportions. You're going to have to get yourself a hat, Connor. It's going to be that exciting.
Don't know about that. I don't wear hats for obvious reasons.
That's not a hat.
You what, sorry?
You're telling me that's not a hat? What is it, a dead animal? Badger? Raccoon?
I was thinking it looks like a ferret, maybe.
Ferret? Could well be. I went to the zoo. It does look a little bit like a lemur.
Oh, I don't know where to go with that. I'll just take it. Oh dear. But Jess, talking about that running, it's something kind of when I look at it, especially the last game, obviously Arsenal away. United women, if you just take the last 4 seasons ago, we had Chelsea away on the final game of the season when we were fighting for the top 3. We just missed out on the last day. 3 seasons ago, when we had Liverpool away, we were fighting for the title. We missed out on the last day. Last season, we had Chelsea on the last game of the season. We don't need to talk about that. Next season, we've got Arsenal away on the last game of the season. We just seem to get the most ridiculous, hardest games possible towards the back end of the season. Obviously, as has been referenced a couple of times, there's a potential that these games are going to be at Old Trafford. I would particularly be looking at that City one again to be at Old Trafford. So there's a very good likelihood again that our last home game of the season is going to be at Old Trafford. As I said, we've only got one evidence of how that went, and that's last season. We potentially don't want to get on that again. But yeah, what's your overall thought? Would you rather them be a bit more spread out, or are you quite happy that they're all kind of bunched up? What's your kind of thoughts on that one?
I mean, I feel like I'd rather them be spread out. It's a difficult one. I'm going to say that on the bright side, the chances of the last game of the season being as god-awful as like this season just gone is pretty low. Like, we have set the bar very low. So trying to put a positive spin on things, because I'm trying to be more like Barry and be more positive, we can only really go up from there. That being said, if I drag my arse to London again on the last day of the season to the Emirates, and we do not win that game, I'm jumping into the Thames and you will never see me again. But no, I keep looking at those final 3 games and I can't quite believe it. Like, if anything, I'm just sort of like seeing it as a joke at this point. And I do think it's going to be fascinating that, like, in 10 months' time, we can look back and after those games have happened and be like, yes, either they went very well or they went average or they went terribly. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's going to be some absolutely quality players on like both teams there. So realistically, all those games should be fantastic games of football to watch. Maybe that's if you're neutral rather than like a United fan. I feel like I'm going to be very stressed, but I am probably going to put those fixtures in a little box in my mind, put them far away to one side, and I'm not going to think about it again until the start of May. Is that end of April? So I'm going to pretend it's not happening, I think is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to ignore those games until I really can't avoid them any longer.
It's certainly going to be interesting, obviously, because we don't know what position we're going to be. I kind of said to someone earlier that I'm just taking, let's get through the first 5 first. let's at least get to 12 points and kind of go from there, because last season was poor in how we started off. That's probably a fair reflection of putting it. And I think get into those last games. I just want us to be in the fight, because we got to the last couple of games last season and top 3 had already gone. You know, we were already out. I think Spurs at home when we drew 2-2, that was the mathematically impossible. And then we still had 3 games where it didn't really mean anything, but we had the cup final, so it was a little bit different. I'd rather us actually still be there fighting for the top 3 at the very least by the time we get to those games. And at least we've got a chance, you know, albeit at the moment, you know, Chelsea, you say those teams, Chelsea, City and Arsenal, it's tough. You know, it's the hardest games you're going to play in the league. But there's a chance. As Barry referenced, 2 seasons ago, we were in there, especially against Arsenal and City. We competed really well. Last season, we did beat Chelsea. Granted, we were very poor against them, in the league and Arsenal City also. So I don't know. It really depends what United we're going to see next season.
But also, Connor, what I would say about last season is that we were so out of it for so long that these games against the big teams just didn't really seem to matter to us, because even if we beat them, we weren't going to be putting back any spaces in any positions. What we did notice is that we beat Chelsea in that run to the FA Cup final and to winning that. And I say that purely because when the chips were there and we needed to produce it, we did. And I think that's the big difference. So I think if we're in a situation, like I say, where we've got to play those 3 teams and it gets gradually better, you know, it's Chelsea first, then it's City, then it's Arsenal. That was 1, 2, 3 last season. So it does potentially get easier as the run goes through. And, you know, actually that could be massive. You know, I mean, just imagine the scenes if, you know, there we are, there or thereabouts, we managed to get past Chelsea to steal top, and then we dispatch City and Arsenal. It could well be the arrival of Manchester United Women's Club in the WSL for sure. Or it could just be us back and forth again. So there's lots of places it could go. But I do think that knowing you've got to win that game in order to win the league is a very different sort of feeling and a very different sort of ask that the club, I think, are a lot more used to and ready for now.
No, I agree. And it kind of ties it what Charlie said there. You know, I'd rather a run of 10 winnable games, you know, build up the points tally, so to speak. So at least we're in it. Like I said, obviously, if you play those, I think TJ referenced this a little bit earlier on, saying, you know, better than the last 3 games of the year. I suppose it means we could be in it, rather than if we lost all of those mid-season, as we did last season, and we were out of it with 4 games to go. And so I at least think, I mean, that's providing we do beat the other teams around us. We've got to improve on that, you know, this season, because, you know, you look at last season, you know, we're looking at Brighton and Leicester and Spurs and West Ham and these teams we drew to or lost to last season. Liverpool as well, who did the double over us. We need to win those games if we've got any hope of getting back into the top 3 as well. Yeah, I mean, that could also be an added bonus, especially at the Emirates. I think it's interesting, I think, on that one.
It's a little bit early to be coming up with that, isn't it? Stopping other teams from winning the title. It's the start of the season. We should all be positive and looking forward to what could be. And if the best thing we can look forward to is stopping one of the other teams from winning the title, we might as well just stop now. I'm not having a go, James. I'm really not. But let's try and be, you know, let's look a little bit higher. I know we only finished 5th last season, but we had a terrible season last season. It was horrifically negative. Let's go straight into this being positive, because I think we've got a right to be this season.
Yeah, I'm with Barry. I think a solid 4th place is on the cards. I think when when we're looking up the table.
I think that's what I said. Is your hair falling into your ears?
Great. I'm thrilled that we will be breaking that top 4. Well, just about to 4th. No further.
I am telling you now, we will finish in the top 3 this season.
You're right.
I'm not going to go straight as high as saying we're going to win the title just yet. I need to review some other situations, i.e., if we don't get a fullback in, I'm going to be a little bit upset. But I'm feeling positive again, a bit like I did 2 years ago, and I was so very, very nearly correct that time. So, heard it here first, folks. We are going to finish top 3.
Do you know what? I'm here for it. There is actually no reason why we can't. I'm sorry, but there's literally no reason why we can't. We have some very good players. We've got some good players that have come in already. There's still a long transfer season ahead of us. We've still got another month and 5-6 weeks maybe. I have no concept of time, but we've still got time in the transfer window. I am. Do you know what, Barry? You've converted me. I'm positive. I'm ready. Chelsea away. Come at me. We're gonna win.
Oh, the poem will be the stuff of dreams if we won the league. Honestly, I would have a show just for that, I think. And Fred, do you know what? 2 years ago, this is all I heard, and then we were in the title race and we had a big old fight for it and we very, very, very nearly won it. So feel free, mate. The world's full of opinions. That's just mine. Get over it. It's all good.
Yeah, I don't tend to agree. I do agree that I think we'll get top 3. I think I'm kind of teetering on 3rd and 4th at the moment. I don't really know. It kind of changes by the week. But I think we'll get onto this a bit later on. But I think we're a couple of signings away from me really saying, yeah, top 3. I think definitely another defender, because I worry with injuries and how shaky our back.
But if we can't be positive now, when can we?
At the start of the season, we're still 6 weeks away. Yeah?
We might get absolutely tonked. We might be sitting there going, "Oh my god!" But that's not happened yet, and we are a month and a half away from it. So
exactly, I'll get there when we're a month and a half down the line.
It's got to slowly build momentum, slowly ease into it. Which, to be fair, I think I'm more like that. I'm positive that we're going to have more signings. But if we don't have those signings, then my positivity is going to plummet, and I'm just going to be happy if we stay up.
So I also think as well, our last evidence of watching us play was an absolute battering at Old Trafford. And it's so we don't know what team we're going to see next season. I really don't. We could go on, and you might be right, we might go on for a title challenge, but we could be even worse. We really don't know at the moment. So I'm going to wait and see to what I see throughout the rest of the window. Pre-season doesn't really mean too much, I can't lie. It's kind of just there for your fitness and things like that. But we'll see at the start of the season as to how we fare once we actually play the teams competitively that we need to be playing. It's a lot of comments about certain individual players and all that kind of thing. I'll come back to that when we do signings. However, we finally have our 4th member, which has been a while since we've done a 4-person panel show. That was
sorry, guys. My car really knows how to pick its moments.
But
look, it's Keris. Really Keris.
Really Keris in one piece.
There we go. Well, we're delighted to have you on again. I'll just ask you very quickly then, because we've kind of spoken about it for the last 20 minutes or so, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Just your thoughts on the fixtures and obviously the run-in. We've got various, obviously, pretty tough one there, but anything stands out for you there?
I mean, the run-in's horrible. Obviously, Liverpool is on my birthday weekend, which when that happened last year, it was the men's FA Cup quarter-final. So if it goes the same way again, then this could actually be a really good omen. But yeah, hopefully we can kind of get off to a good start with the opening run of games. I'm hoping, but the run-in is is horrible. I don't know who comes up with this stuff and what they have against us, but yeah, it'll be interesting to obviously see what games we end up having at Old Trafford and stuff like that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we've covered a lot. I didn't think fixtures were going to take 25 minutes, to be fair, but there we go.
Paris, do you think we can finish top 3 this season?
I think we can.
Do you think we will?
I don't know, Barry. We'll have to see how the season goes.
Oh, no, don't be a politician. When did you turn at Boris Johnson?
No, we definitely can finish top 3. I think it massively... I mean, we've literally got no idea, have we? Like, if you look at where we finished the season before last, I thought we were going to go on and challenge for the title this season. Instead, we dropped down to 5th. So based on, that, it's impossible to say. I reckon we will finish 3rd is my completely unfounded guesswork prediction.
Thanks, Keris.
I think that's it. I think we definitely can at the moment. It really depends. Like I said, I really don't know what United we're going to see next season. I'm excited with the players that we got coming back in with Watson and Clinton and these types of players, and obviously the new signings, which we'll talk about in a second. But I don't know, because I said I was really excited about last season, and I was massively disappointed by the time we got to Christmas and just and everything else. So I'm one of those. I will wait and see how we start the season, and go from there, because that's just how I do it on these things. Right, there's a lot of comments about signings. Let's move on to that then, because we have already signed 3. I think by this time last year we'd only signed 2. One of them was Evie Ramsden, that was way earlier, but only official a bit later on as well. I think the other one was Gemma Evans. I can't remember whether we'd signed Watson by this point. It wasn't far away. I feel like Jace was before Watson though, thinking back. I might have to double check that, but I think we'd only signed 2, and one of them was Ramsden by this time last season. The other was Gemma Evans. Keris, I'll come back to you then. In terms of just, are you happy with the business so far? So we've got Mallard, Turner and Janssen over the line. Are you pretty happy with how it's going so far and what you've seen and everything else?
Yeah, I think in terms of the incoming so far, I'm really happy. Mallard coming in on a permanent was obviously something that we were all really excited for. I think I've said so many times that we haven't seen the best out of her yet. So I'm really excited to see kind of how she functions in this sort of like new look attack. Like, we've had her out on the left a couple of times, so I'll be interested to see like whether that happens and we decide to keep Turland just as that very like classic number 9 up top. And Turland, I'm so excited to see play. I mean, she's just been absolutely unbelievable for Brighton. In terms of like goal scoring, I think that's the thing, that we've had goals spread around the team a lot, but we haven't had that sort of like that real kind of out and out just goal scorer week after week after week. And when we look at her output for Brighton over the last couple of seasons, I think that's what we've hopefully got now. So really happy so far. Janssen don't know as much about, to be honest, but it's just good to have that like defensive reinforcement, especially if we're going to continue to pick up injuries at the rate that we seem to always pick up injuries at the back. The only other thing I'd like to see is just a bit more kind of like, it depends whether we're going to reinforce that defensive midfield role or whether we decide that we're just going with like...
Is Keris
I was me there for a minute, but it's not.
What?
Oh, she's back. Hurrah for Wi-Fi.
I can't remember where you froze.
That today, it actually better not.
You were talking about defensive reinforcements.
Yeah, defensive. Depends if we want to get another defensive midfielder in, or if we just decide that we're going to stick with Hayley Ladd in that kind of role. That's the only other area that I would look at maybe reinforcing. But I think we've got a lot of options. Goalkeepers, especially wise. A lot of people are kind of fussed about goalkeepers. I think Fallon can be our number 1 keeper. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
I definitely want to come back to the goalkeeper situation, because people will have seen Tom Gary did do an article the other day talking about this and talk about a goalkeeper being a potential priority for United as well. So I do want to come back to that. I've starred some of your questions again. I will come back to them, I promise. But Barry, obviously for yourself, as I mentioned, we got the 3 signings in. We've, as Jonathan's put, we have had an injury before we've even started pre-season, let alone the season, which pretty much rules out Evie for, well, if not all of the season. It will be 90% of it anyway. So that's 1 defender down before we've even started, and we already know that the likes of Jade and Aoife Mannion have had kind of injury issues over the last kind of couple of years as well. Is that the kind of next area you think we need to well, my first question is, are you happy with the 3 that we've had in? But is that the next area you think now needs reinforcing?
I'm really pleased with the incomings so far. I think as the transfer window goes, the ins have been brilliant. I mean, I'd really rather not talk about the outs, so I'm going to try not to today. But I think the ins have been superb. Listen, getting Mallard in through the... Hello, Archie. Having Mallard in through the door is a superb moment. Even extending Nikita Paris's contract, I think, is important. The front line was going to be massive for us. And I think one of the things that happened 2 seasons ago was that we scored a lot more goals and they were being spread out across the whole team. Last year, that didn't really happen as much. We didn't score as many as we would have liked. But what we did get was Nikita Paris having an absolutely superb season for us. In fact, she scored 25 out of 57 games. So, she's a 1 in 2 striker. Ish. And we've just signed Elizabeth Turland. I'm sorry, I try very hard not to do that. Queen Elizabeth III, of course. God. Oh, I'm just going to have to make... Where are we? We go to West Ham. We're going to the LSV first game. I'm going to have to come up there, aren't I? And just go, look, sorry, I might call you Liz every once in a while. I can't help it. It's things that I do. I call you Condog, I call Jess amazing. I don't always have to call you the same things, do I? But that signing across the front line there, helping us to get these 1 in 2 strikers, is vital. She was quite good at doing that. She did that for Brighton. She's done that for Bran, and for Klepp, she was a 1 in 3 striker. So I do think that you look across that front line, there's more goals. Defensively, we weren't so great last season. We missed on Abatier. What we've got now is Dominique Janssen, and she is a player who is going to get assists galore. Her goal stats are ridiculous when you consider where she was. She was on like 1 in 5 from Wolfsburg, which is just absolutely crazy to think that a defender could get that level of goals. And obviously a lot of those comes from set pieces. It makes you wonder if Mark Skinner had kept hold of Katie Zellum as long as he did, purely for the set piece delivery and what she brought on it. And at the minute we got somebody else who could take over set pieces, was that really all he wanted her for? I don't know. I hope not, but it would explain maybe a bit of the sort of the thought process going through. But I think having Janssen is massive for us at the back, whether she performs there or whether she potentially moves into a patrol in the back 4 sort of situation. So I think having that, May Letitia, who's one of the best young defenders that I think the WSL, if indeed Europe, has got to offer. Fallon, I was calling all our season for Fallon to be given that number 1 spot so that she could bed in and get used to the defence in front of her and have all of those sorts of things, because everybody knew that Mary Earps was likely to leave the club, and that's exactly what she went and did. I think all of those things, plus a return next season of Gabby George, Jade Riviere performing as well as she did at right back, everything within that first 11 with these signings that we've had, amazing. The only 2 things that could do us are Mark Skinner having a dodgy selection policy and sticking with this everybody needs to play 40 games to understand what the person next to you is doing routine. That's part 1. And part 2, of course, is injuries, which leads us to the fullback thing. For me, that's what we need. We need to make sure we've got another defender. The 3 forwards is fine. I feel like midfield, we can probably work around that. For me, 2 more signings would be good, but it wouldn't be a goalkeeper going to what Tom Gary said. I would like another defender, preferably a fullback. And I would also 100% like another centre midfielder, just in the sort of, you'll argue with me, in the Zellum mould, but someone who's going to sit back, someone who can play the 6 so that we've got that back up in that as well. But for me, the most important thing, get a fullback. When we do that, and you can scrub your top 3, I might be sitting there talking about we're going to win the league again.
I think it's fair, but it's kind of where I'm at the moment, because I think, TJ, I wanted a fullback before Ravjon had even done her ACL anyway. I think we needed that cover there, and obviously Jess Simpson's coming off the back of a an injury herself, an ACL injury herself, so we don't know how she's going to fit in terms of her fitness and everything else when she comes back into the season. Mads, I see a question about Janssen. I've got literally a specific question on her in terms of where she's going to play, because an interesting debate kind of flared up in the live I did on TikTok yesterday, which I really want to bring to the YouTube audience. I want to see what you guys think on that one as well, because they're definitely interested on there. Before I come to her specifically, though, Jess, what's your thoughts, obviously, on the 3 signs that we made so far, and also the kind of extra areas you think potentially now, looking at the squad where it's at, that we need to be reinforced? I
am thrilled, to be honest, so far about the signings. I think they were fantastic signings for us. I said it in a show, I think a few weeks ago, keeping Mallard when she was such a fan favourite last year, I think was huge. And like it's already been said, I don't think we've seen the best from her yet. I think now she's played a season and bedded in, and like you say, Skinner has had his many games with her. I think she'll absolutely smash it this season. Also, sorry about the dog; he's just having a little feature on the show. I am thrilled. And Queen Elizabeth Turland, I am thrilled about that. I mean, what a signing. Again, you've got someone who was sought after by a number of clubs. She basically single-handedly kind of kept Brighton afloat all season. She has been incredible. And I think Janssen, I have to admit, I don't know so much about her as a player. But I think bringing someone in with that experience, regardless of kind of playing abilities, that's almost enough on its own. You've got someone who had 4 or 5 years at Arsenal. So not only is she well experienced, she's got experience within the WSL, because we know that like all leagues are different. So I think they were good moves, really good moves from United. And the fact that we're pulling in players like that, and again, I said this before, it shows that we're not as bad as people think, or as sometimes the fans think. There's another comment to come through. Obviously, we've got Clinton hopefully coming back from loan. That is, again, if we keep her, which I'm assuming we will, I can't see why we'd want her to go on loan again. That's going to make a huge difference. For me, and I think, Connor, we spoke about this ages ago before Rob John's injury anyway, we need fullbacks. We needed them kind of in the Christmas transfer window, and we never picked up anyone. So we really need to kind of bolster in that kind of position. I think sorry, the dog is wiggling and he weighs a ton. Honestly, it's terribly unprofessional. Look at him though, he's dead cute. Hang on, let me close my laptop. He's asleep basically on the desk. Well, not asleep, just annoying me, wiggling. We needed players at Christmas, we didn't get them. So now is the time to get them. We struggled a lot with injuries last season. I'd say that was probably one of the biggest reasons that our season wasn't as it should have been. Losing Gabby so early on, having to kind of bring Jade back when she may have not quite been ready. And we know that she's got like little niggles that she suffers with off and on. So I think if we've learned anything from last season, it's that we need to get more players in. But players that we actually want and that are going to play. And the dog is eating something, and I don't know what.
No, I tend to agree, and I think it's fair to obviously bring up Clinton as well, because I think that's another player. I say this a lot. I think Watson, George, and Clinton are basically going to be like new signs for us next season, because we've not seen them fully in a full season at United. So it is going to be a big addition, I feel like. And when we're looking at replacing certain players, they're players to come in that can fill some of those molds as well. Just to get through a couple of comments at the start, just so I can go through some of these. Yes, I believe so. I don't see the reason as to why. When we come to talking about potential goalkeepers in a second, I don't think that is to replace Fallon. I think that's very much to back her up rather than replace her. There was one about that one. Has there been any new transfer rumors since the Turland signing? Other than that, and there's a lot that floats around Twitter, and I've seen it in the chat tonight about various different things reported to various players and potential positions. I will go off what I have heard and what is reported by the people that I would consider in that top bracket, the likes of Tom and so on, about the goalkeeper and midfielder. I think that's kind of the areas that we're looking at in terms of reinforcements there. And again, I think there will potentially be maybe not as experienced as we have seen before that as well. I actually agree, Lon. I think it's a very good point that Watson in particular has played probably more in the front three than she has in midfield. So again, that's another position where maybe, because I actually think we do need another winger. I think when I'm looking at it, Galton didn't hit the heights of last season that we've seen previously. We don't know what's going to happen with Parish yet. That's still a bit up in the air, whether she's going to stay past this summer or not. And then you've got Williams, Turland, and Jason. That's our forward line. So we've got 6 players there. So I would like another forward regardless, unless the plan is to put Watson in that front three. Then not against that either. Keris, I want to come to you there in terms of particularly on Janssen, because as Mads put there, maybe Janssen will actually play as DM. Maybe she's the Zellum replacement. I will add, Janssen hasn't, as far as I understand it, I don't think Janssen's played defensive midfield since she was at Arsenal, so we're talking a long time ago now, quite a few years. Her main position is obviously centre-back. She can play left-back as well. Now, when I asked this on the live yesterday that I did, I mentioned about potentially putting her in the team. Would you put her at left-back if that's the case? Who are you kind of kicking out the team there, and at left centre-back? Everyone immediately went, yeah, Janssen over any the 2 players we've got. And I can't lie, I was a bit shocked. I was like, oh, that's just Millie and Hannah straight out the team. Like if you're replacing one of those. Where would you like to see Janssen, and where? Oh no, sorry, 2-part question. Where would you like to see her, and where do you think she's going to go in kind of either one of those 2 positions or back into midfield?
As you said, I don't see her as a midfielder as much, and I would be kind of surprised unless she was like, dead bored of playing in defence and really looking for a change. I'd be kind of surprised if she signed for the club on the understanding of playing defensive midfield. So I would be very surprised if that's the case. In terms of where I'd put her in the defence, she's obviously a really high quality player. But I would say that either of our centre backs are top quality, as in Millie and Maya at the moment. And they've also got the sort of experience of working together as a pair now, if we're talking about them as sort of potential leadership figures next season, maybe as well, because we still don't know who's going to be captain after Zellum, and I wouldn't be that surprised if it was either of those 2. And I think that the centre-back pairing will stay the same, and I wouldn't be that surprised to see her at left-back. It's an interesting question. I think full-back is something that we've obviously got to reinforce because of the injury issues that we've had there. But then we don't know when Gabby George comes back in, then where's she going to go? What's Hannah Blundell's role in that situation? I genuinely, it's a real cop-out answer, but I don't know. I would imagine that she will go in at left-back, but I really don't know.
I think that's Lot made a good point there. I think one of the reasons she left us because she wanted to play centre back again. So if that is true, then obviously she's a left-sided centre back, so that would be Millie out of the team, I would have thought, unless Maya's going to potentially go into midfield, as somebody put in the chat a bit earlier on, and Millie goes over to the right centre-back role. That's a potential other option. But I would assume, knowing, and I think this has been heavily reported anyway, that, that Janssen's main reason, obviously, for coming to United was about the game time and everything else that United could offer. She is definitely starting, I would have thought, or at least majority of the games. And I'm just looking at it thinking, out of the 2, I think you would probably take Millie out over Maya if you're swapping the centre-backs. Equally, if she's playing left back, obviously, it's Hannah's position at the moment. So I'm not too sure. I would like to see her at centre back. I can't lie, because that's
there's also a question of, not to be like completely insane, but there is an option to obviously play 3 centre backs and have like a back 5, have wing backs going on. I do not think that will happen because I think that will be way too radical of a change for us to make. But that's another potential thing that we could see. If Skinner really feels that he can't pick a 2 out of those 3 as centre-backs, then we could see a move to that system. I think it's unlikely, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and I'll throw this over to you, Barry, because I think, when we were kind of talking about Janssen backstage, one of the key things to me when I've watched Janssen and Wolfsburg at, obviously at international level, her passing range is unbelievable. Her long passing is something we always praise, obviously, Laetitia for, that kind of diagonal that she likes to do. If you have a centre-back pairing for me of those 2, in terms of the left centre-back, you've got her picking it from the left side and Maya on the right side doing the same thing, doing the diagonals. You've got then 2 players doing the same thing and kind of those options there. Would you like to see her as kind of that left centre back, left back? What kind of position would you like to potentially see her in next season?
Well, it's when we have this sort of conversation, Connor, that I think that's where it then exposes depth at the club. Because what we've effectively done here is we've taken May Le Tissier, Hannah Blundell, Millie Turner, and of course Dominique Janssen. We're having all of these conversations, and that includes Gabby George as well when she comes back. And what I'm hearing people say is, well, why don't we move this player who plays in this position out of this position and put them into a different position where they maybe don't normally play. Now, I know Alex Greenwood was a left back for Manchester United, and obviously she's made a bit of a career and are having a resurgence by playing a centre back as well. We have seen it. It's not unusual necessarily. But my big worry here is that she's being signed having played as a centre back. Now, we bought May Le Tissier, and she was signed having played as a right back, and we moved her into centre back, and it was incredibly successful. So, in some ways, who am I to turn around and say, well, let's not put Janssen at left back? Purely, I know it's been for years, TJ. That's what I'm saying. It's just the swap was made. At one point, she was a left back, and now she's at centre back. That's what I'm saying. So it does change. It has happened, and it is possible. But I don't like the fact that we're talking about taking players out of their what we would call natural position or their most recent position. And again, we're doing your favourite thing, Connor, which is to try and shoehorn players into positions. Obviously, I'm talking about your team of the year type selections and things like that there, as opposed to your general view on football. It worries me if we're in a situation where we need a fullback, go and buy a fullback. And this is my point. Last season, we were doing silly things. We've done it before. We were throwing, Maria Torres-Dottir into a right back position, into a left back position. We've been putting players like Hannah Blundell, throwing her over to right back, which just wasn't working. And this is the drama. James is right. That is what Southgate did. It doesn't work. You need to have the strength in depth. For me, the fact we're sitting here going, well, do we start Maya? Do we start Millie? Or do we start Janssen? That tells you everything you need to know. It means we're starting to get strength in depth. If you're in a situation where you need to bring on an additional defender, bringing on Millie, Maya, or Dominique puts you in a situation where actually people are watching going, bloody hell, they're bringing that player on. We don't want that. And that's what you need. You don't want to be sitting there going, hang on a second, look, he's bringing this player on and he's going to shove them into a position they don't usually play in. Because that gives confidence to the other team. We can get at that player. That's not where they normally play. So, for me, strengthen the fullbacks. I'm with the others. I don't really want to see the defenders stepping up into midfield. I think at that point, you're looking at your Hayley Ladd, your Lisa Nilssons. Again, same thing. If you're saying we need to put these players further forward, buy a central midfielder. And that's why, about 20 minutes ago, I said to you, the two positions we need to purchase are a fullback and a centre midfielder who can play in the six. Because if you do those things, you then have depth. You've got Hayley Ladd and AN other. You get a fullback, you've got your Gabby George and your Jade Riviere and AN other. And you can have players that can play left and right back. Phil Neville did it for years. But the point is, they need to be in that situation regularly. And I think for me, that's the big thing. So can they? Yes. Should they? No.
No, I think that's why I agree. That's why for me, and as harsh as this is on Millie, and I agree. I don't think it's harsh. It's depth. It's exactly what the best teams in around Europe and the best teams in the WSL that we've seen in the last few years. They have this depth, and I think that's what we need. And having those three centre backs plus Aoife Mannion as well. I think if you've got Maya and Aoife on the right hand side of your back two, and then you've got Millie and Janssen as your other side of your back two, then you've got a really good kind of backup two centre backs, and then you just need to sort your full backs out because you've got Gabby and Hannah on one side. And Jade kind of on her own on the right-hand side, needing a bit of cover there as well. I think once we sort that out, I think it's fine. I would love to... My back two, I've said for as soon as she signed that it would be Janssen and Maya together, but I really don't know what we're going to see on that front. Jess, is that kind of the area that you see her before we kind of move on to I guess kind of the last couple of things there. Ella's kind of backing up what I said there, saying I think Janssen and Mayer would be a good centre-back pairing, with a good experienced player with a good young talent as well. Obviously talking about Janssen and Mayer there, is that kind of where you would be looking to put her?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like you say, I think it is just about having depth. Like, I think Millie's one of those like fan favourites. Everyone absolutely loves her. She's a fantastic personality to have on the pitch. But like, competition for places is good. It's what you want. And essentially the back four haven't really had much competition for places because there's just been so many injuries. But sorry, the dog is having a meltdown. There we go, little baby. I had to go and get him again because I could just hear all this crashing around when Barry was talking, and I was really concerned about the state of my house. Normally I leave him downstairs, but I had the robot Hoover going, and I did not want to leave him downstairs with that. Anyway, more importantly, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see a new centre-back partnership, and I think that is what we could be getting. We always kind of take the mick out of Chelsea for their depth. And the same with Barcelona. We say that they're like hoarding players. But at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. Chelsea's best striker got injured and they immediately just went out and bought a brand new like-for-like replacement, essentially. And that is, there's a reason why they are constantly winning. Oh, God. Right, get down, honestly. Sorry. Yes, there is a reason why they are constantly winning the WSL, and it's because they can have all these injury problems and they just survive it because they've got an endless backlog of players. And when they need a new player, they literally just go and break the bank and get one. And I think that's where United need to step up a bit and get that kind of depth because, like I said previously, one of our biggest issues last season and one of the main reasons I think we struggled in games and things like that is just simply just depth. We just did not have it. I said it before, we needed fullbacks in the winter transfer window and we didn't get any. And bloody Stevie Wonder could have seen that we needed fullbacks, but it didn't seem to make a difference. So we've got a really good opportunity now to get them. So we've got to just carry on in this transfer window, kind of how we've started. We've been really positive with our purchases. And yeah, we just need to get another few to bolster the team, and we should be in a really strong position, to be fair, for the start of the season.
No, I agree. I mean, Anton, on your point, I would expect quite a few to leave Chelsea and go on loan and various other things because, as you rightly said, they've got way too many players currently on the books. So they can't actually register that many anyway. So I think they'll have quite a few leaving as well. I don't think so at the moment. I think it's very much a case she's going to be a part of the first team next season, which I'm really excited for, if you can't already tell. I've lost the comment I was going to go to. Very quickly then, just to kind of round up, I guess, potential incomings. I literally just want a very short answer from each of you. Reference to Tom Gary article that you put out the other day. And again, side of this is a slight opinion piece, but the piece he wrote on United, the paragraph on United, was talking about specific targets for United, a goalkeeper and midfielder. And he did say that signings in both those areas are very likely in the coming days/weeks. Kind of a short answer from each of you. Are you against signing a goalkeeper if it's a potential backup? I'll just throw around the panel. So, Barry, I'll start with you, Karis, and then Jess.
Wasn't expecting you to come to me first, so there you go. Should be ladies first. No, I'm not against any club buying anyone. I think it's important. We've not really mentioned it, but Dan Ashworth coming out today and sort of, I suppose, maybe repairing the damage, some people would say. For me, coming in and saying the things that he has, working at Newcastle, working at Brighton, and doing what he did with the women's teams there, and to make it a priority of his to do that, I think was really quite important. And because now that means we can start seeing the structure above Mark Skinner start to change. We've spoken a lot on the men's channel about this and how the structure above Ten Hag changing was so important to the feel-good factor. That's why I want to see the feel-good factor back here in the women's team. We can do that by making sure we've got a structure. Polly Bancroft was the person that came in. Now, the fact that she turned out to be about as useful, as a third leg made out of glass that's broken, is irrelevant, really. The simple fact is that there's absolutely zero things to be negative about when you've got, he's gone, when you've got, love it when I do that, when you've got a structure that's absolutely poor above them. So if they're deciding we need that, absolutely a backup for Fallon would be brilliant. I'd love to see Saf take that role. Is she ready for it? I don't know. Haven't got a clue. So if they feel they need another one and they want to send Saf out for another year on loan and she's happy to go with that and that's part of the development plan that's going to help her to become United's official number 2, perfect. The fact he's mentioned a centre midfielder, well, I've just said we need one of those who can play in the 6, so that would be absolutely perfect. My biggest problem is still, I mentioned this at the beginning of last year when Honor left, we've been talking about getting a fullback at this football club for what feels like a ridiculous amount of time. The fact that's not even being mentioned would be reason number 3 why we might end up not finishing in the top 3, because we get injuries and we don't have that strength in depth at fullback. Nightmare.
Yeah, I think in terms of goalkeeper, I wouldn't be opposed to signing a new goalkeeper as a backup to Fallon, as long as it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. I think that's the main, not to go back to the whole leg thing, but like, I think the thing that, sorry, Connor, the issue with how we dealt with Fallon last season was that we spent absolute fortune on her and then she barely played, which I thought was a massive shame. So I think that she should now be our number 1 keeper. I don't know what on earth we brought her in for if it wasn't to be an eventual number 1 keeper. I think Saf has amazing potential, but she is still very young. So if the club kind of knowing, because we've seen a more limited amount of both of these keepers that we're talking about that we've got at the moment than the staff at the club. So I sort of trust their opinion more to say, yeah, we do need a backup to Fallon and we need it to not be Saf. We need it to be someone else with more experience. And if that's the case, then I'm happy with that as long as it doesn't cost us a fortune. But other than that, I agree with Barry in that I feel like every single transfer window goes by with us talking about signing a fullback, and then we are still here like an eternity later without another one. Defensive midfield as well for me is another one that could do with reinforcing, but I'm really happy with the progress that we made so far.
Is Jess going to go for it? Or
I was so surprised. To be honest, Connor, I thought you'd frozen. You were like, and I was like, sorry, that's me. I don't know what's happened since this dog came into the room. It's just sent my brain just through. I don't know what's happening anymore. Yeah, very much just echo what's already been said. If we spend a fortune on another keeper, I don't know what I'll do. I'll combust potentially, because I just think, what was the point in that? Fallon for me has to be our number 1. If she is not our number 1 this season, then I have no idea why we bought her. So 100% she's got to be number 1. Hang on, the dog wants to leave the bloody room now. Go on then. It's like having a toddler in the house, or what I imagine having a toddler in the house is like. Never a single moment's peace ever. I think it's difficult to know whether Saf's ready or not because of her age. It's one of those, at some point she's going to have to make the jump. So do you just bring her up as a second keeper now, or do you give her a season out on loan? For me, she probably needs some time out on loan to get a little bit more used to kind of getting minutes under a belt rather than being thrown in. I know the thing is, if you look at last season, for example, we barely used Fallon. So unless, touch wood, a big injury is not going to happen, how many minutes is she realistically going to get? It's probably worthwhile for her development to go out on loan more than anything else, and for her to actually get some game time, because she's not going to get that, I wouldn't have thought, playing as a number 2 keeper. And for her age, I think she needs minutes playing as a first team keeper for a team lower down the kind of pyramid. So yeah, potentially I wouldn't be mad if we got in another keeper with the kind of proviso that they are our second keeper. I think getting in a replacement first keeper is insanity. So it'd be interesting to see, because I think we will get someone in. And I just hope that the intention is that whoever we bring in will be sort of back up for Fallon.
I agree with you about sending Saf out on loan. I think at the stage of her development that she's at, minutes are really valuable. I just think the issue with going, realistically, how much would we need our backup keeper? You never need them until you do, So I think if we were to have a loan, we would need like a very snappy recall clause in there. And in that case, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with not bringing in a third keeper. But I am very hesitant to be like, we don't need to worry too much about a backup keeper because those are very famous last words.
I just think whoever we bring in ultimately has to be somebody that Skinner wants. Because there's a lot going on in the chat and lots of talk, obviously, about players that have left and all that sort of thing. The fact that we had a conversation when Zellum left that he wasn't even involved in being able to keep her for another year if he wanted to. The simple fact that people have been arriving and not playing points to the fact that he's not always involved in the incomings. So people see it, and rightly they're annoyed that players are brought over here and put into the squad, but never really seem to play. I get that, but it's easy, isn't it, to just go and blame Mark Skinner on that one, where actually he might be forced to have a player that he doesn't rate or doesn't want. And we just, being good Man United fans, sit there and automatically assume that they are the absolute bee's knees. But we don't see them. And other people might. And at the end of the day, as I say, Skinner lives and dies by his decisions. So whatever happens, they have to be players that he wants and feels like he can make use of. Otherwise, they're just a pointless signing.
I think on the goalkeeper front, that let me start that. I meant to bring that up. I don't think so. And as TJ's followed up, she's still under contract. Bayern have just released another goalkeeper as well. Like Bayern, I would be amazed if Bayern sold her. I'd also be that to me is not a number two. If you're signing Gross, she is starting. Like there's no way she's leaving a Champions League side in Bayern who have just won back-to-back titles. Still young as well. I think she's only 24. Under contract as well. She's not leaving unless she's guaranteed to be starting. So I think that's unlikely, if I'm being honest, from Bayern, from United, because that will cost probably another world record fee to get her for a goalkeeper. I just don't see it. So yeah, no, I tend to agree. I think Saf probably does need another loan. She's at that point in her career. I think she's probably one more loan away. If we loan her next season and she doesn't get into the squad the season after, I think she probably needs to look to leave because she's getting to that point. She's starting for Wales. She's had a couple of games there now. Obviously had a good loan spell last season before she picked up a little injury. Like she's a very good goalkeeper, and I think she's kind of at that crossroads now. I think one more loan is probably about it. WSL, I think she probably needs now. But yeah, I think at the moment it's a tough one. I'm not against it, but equally, I'm not against Saf being on number two if she played the Conti games like Fallon did last season. It is what it is on that one. So we shall see. We shall see what happens. Any ideas on who will get for CD? I have no idea. There was a couple of people mentioned Vito Sullivan a bit earlier on. That's gone really quiet ever since. It was just a reported interest at the time. And since then, nothing since. I don't think United have moved any further on it, to be honest, as far as I'm aware. We shall see what happens in the coming days. I want to briefly touch on her because Barry just briefly referenced it, and there is a few people of you talking about her in the chat. Irene Guerrero is another piece of news that we have seen in the last week or so we will cover it. We're kind of doing like a weekly wrap of everything that's happened in Man Women's to the live show. Kara, so come to you first on this one. I've said at the time that I felt very passionately about this because of obviously what the way that we got Irene Guerrero in, and I said this at the time. Me and Philip kind of did a show on this in terms of how we got her in, and Bilderberg going the other way. Obviously, she played 7 games, 1 assist. That assist come in 5 minutes into her debut, and then we didn't really see her again after that. It's hard to miss a player you didn't really see, but at the same time, we've seen her Instagram post that she put out. I think it's very telling. When she's talking about falling out of love with football and saying about how she wasn't able, her exact word, and I will just say that for people who maybe haven't seen it, not having the opportunity to show what I'm capable of despite working hard and being professional every day, taught me how to help my teammates from another perspective. It's sad to have to part ways, but I feel it's a necessary change to both personally and sportively to enjoy what I'm passionate about once again. So I think that's that's probably the most honest we've seen a statement in any of the players. Probably Mary's is up there as well. Again, I think it's hard to. I'm not going to ask you if you're going to miss her, so to speak, because I think it's hard to miss a player that we didn't really see. But are you surprised that we've let her go after a year, considering we made it pretty clear, obviously, with that swap deal with Vilda?
I can't be that surprised because she had played so little that it was just so obvious that she was not a part of the club's plans. And I'm also not surprised it sounds from her statement like she wanted to leave as well. So that doesn't, which again, I can't be surprised by because, like you say, she only played 7 games. I mean, only a handful of those were starts, right? So for a World Cup winner, it's a real... I struggle to think that was what she was promised or what she thought she was getting when she signed for us. And it's just a really sad kind of saga, really. Like, as you said, the way that she came in was in a swap deal for Boarisa, a player that a lot of fans didn't want us to let go of, and we did. And we were like, okay, we're getting a really quality midfielder in instead. And she just hasn't played. It's a bizarre bit of business. I still don't really know. I think there was maybe some sort of crosswires somewhere down the line. And again, this comes back to what we were talking about the board being linked to the management and the manager actually wanting the players that the board are trying to bring in. Because we can, there are plenty of people who will criticise Skinner for not playing Guerrero. And I think that's a very fair criticism. But there is also a fair criticism to be made if that was never his intention. Why on earth did the club sign her? I think the blame is not just with Skinner on this one. So yeah, as like you say, I can't really say I'm going to miss her because we barely saw her play, but I do think that it's a very sad sort of indictment of how our transfer strategy has been at times.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I do think Highland is right as well. I think Skinner does have to take some responsibilities, although he may not have wanted her. I think when you're presented with a player that I think we will now see, you do not get into the Spanish squad midfield in all of the talent they have got, and now she's not in it at all. She's now completely fallen out of the squad there because she wasn't playing with United last season. I think he does have to take some of that because your role as a manager, and anyone who's been in management will tell you, is to look after the team, and I don't think he has fully done that with certain players last season.
I completely agree with that. My point on, I think I agree that Skinner has to bear some responsibility for how things have gone since she's been at the club, but that obviously stems from kind of issues with how the signing was conducted in the first place. So I think the blame is spread on that one, but I 100% agree that your job as a manager is to develop players, and we've literally it's like you say, in terms of the international stage, being at United has sent her backwards, and that's the sort of situation where, not to sound like a broken record, but if we do keep doing that to players, then they are going to tell their mates not to come to our club, and that's not happening yet by the sounds of things in terms of the signings that we've brought in so far. But I think that we just need to make sure we have a good reputation as a place players are developed, not a place where they go to lose minutes and jeopardise their international careers.
No, I agree. And I think, Barra, I come to you on this one, just following on from what Lot said there, we are scouting hard. Harvey has been a heavy recruitment since June last year. I'm not sure how involved he was. I can tell you this, as far as I'm aware, that I know the deal. I don't know about the deal going out. Obviously, I'm assuming Guerrero pushed for this to leave, and I don't blame her for doing so. But the swap deal was very much a Polly Bancroft move, from what I know of that deal and everything that kind of happened around that. So I think, and this sounds, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but then this sounds really harsh. But I genuinely think this was a bit of a marketing signing. I think because she just come off the back of winning the World Cup, we could then say, look, we've got a World Cup winner, we've got the Golden Boot winner, we've got the Golden Glove winner, all from the World Cup. And I think because they wanted Vilda out of the club, I fully believe that if Guerrero wasn't available and she wasn't the World Cup winner, we would not have done this. And obviously, Barry, you have your say on it now, because I think my overall thoughts, it's just sad. It's sad from all parties. Vilda didn't want to go. We pushed her out. Guerrero comes in, doesn't play. She's fallen out of love with football. It's just, for me, it's just messy all around.
Listen, it is sad, and I'm just going to go straight. I've got no other way of saying this. I think we as fans will often blow up and inflate the usefulness of a person that we haven't seen, because that's a very easy thing to do. It's incredibly easy to sit there and go, oh my God, this player could be the new Pele, when we've not really seen them play. It's easy to do. That's an easy way to have a go at your management and moan that they're not giving them a chance and they're not playing. The simple truth of the matter is that a couple of years ago, everybody was saying we need to play Vilda more, give Vilda more time. We didn't, and we ended up finishing second. The way that she went was a disgrace. I'm not saying for 1 second that Mark Skinner's blameless. We've said all through last year that we need to take the microphone away from him and just sort of keep him in a box after a football match. You know, once he's done his managing, just pack him away. A bit like Taylor Swift going on to her concerts. Apparently she goes in on this big box, and that's what we should do. Just put him in a box, wheel him to the dugout, let him out, let him do his job. Brilliant stuff. Put him back in the box, take him out. He can wave to the fans as he goes if he wants. No problem whatsoever. And I think if we do that, we're in a much better position, because that's where Mark Skinner absolutely lost the plot. His treatment of the players in that respect, I completely agree with, has not been good at all. But that's also a club problem. You know, the way in which Vilda left was unacceptable. But that wasn't just Mark Skinner. That was, again, old third leg, wasn't it? So, you know, we're just going to have to sit there and take that one on the chin. So the same things happened with Guerrero. I mean, you know the stats, Connor. What was it, 7 appearances, of which he played about 150 minutes in total?
I think only one of them was a start. The other 3 in the FA Cup were off the bench. So, yeah, it's 100 and something minutes, I think, overall.
In our worst league season. And we're all sitting here and people are going, oh, we should have played Guerrero. We should have done this. Well, maybe we should have. But it's a pointless argument that we can never, ever, ever win, because we're never going to know whether or not she would have been a good player for Manchester United or not. So, you know, is it rubbish? Yes, it is. Of course it is. But again, all I can say is that if I was managing a football team and somebody forced a player upon me, and I'm not saying that is what's happened, but it looks like what's happened on numerous occasions for Mark Skinner, because it's a pattern. There's no way he can be buying these players thinking they're quality and then just not giving them a chance to play football because they're all rubbish. That can't be the way that it's happening. So there has to be, you'd be sacked for that, surely. You know, if your recruitment was that poor, you're going, oh, she's a really good player. And then a year later, you're going, no, actually, she was rubbish. No one's ever going to let you make a choice as to who you bring in again. And if that's what's been happening, then, you know, here we are again. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, like Kerry said, I'm not going to miss her, because what is there to miss? 150 minutes of football. I haven't seen it. So, no, it is rubbish. But, you know, I think it's just another stick to beat Mark Skinner with, but it's not a stick I'll be picking up, particularly.
I think I can see both sides of this. I'm a little bit worried that we keep seeing this, that we keep seeing players coming in and not playing and then leaving after a year or so. Tunkara is another prime example. Again, was in and around the international squad and played Champions League, all this kind of thing. We bring her in for a year, terminate her contract a year later, and she goes for free. And it's just like, again, another player that you're like, what is going on? If it's a trust thing from Mark Skinner, I've always said if a problem keeps repeating, you look at yourself, because if the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again, there must be something that you're doing wrong in order for those issues to keep repeating. If it's one-offs, fair enough, they happen. Not every single club gets every single transfer right, but when you keep having repeated ones, and especially in a poor season, that's my issue. The season before, I'm very much like came second and everything like that. And albeit we won the FA Cup last season, in the league last season, we were very poor in a lot of those games. Why couldn't she just get minutes, especially till the end of the season, in those pointless games between the semi-final and the final? What is stopping her getting minutes in those games? That was my issue, and I think it's no wonder she wanted to leave, and she's spoken about falling out of love with football, because I probably would. If you're going from the highs of what she had winning the World Cup to then never stepping on the pitch again, it's tough.
She wasn't a starter for Spain, though, really, was she?
Not all the time. Well, no, I
This is
don't
my
think
point. So everybody's sitting there. Oh my God, she's not Mappy Leon. Do you know what I mean? She was a substitute who came on and did a bit part of winning the World Cup. You know, that's absolutely brilliant. But Gemma Evans is an FA Cup winner.
I can see what I can see your angle. My point still stands. You can't keep treating players over and over and over again
Made mine. There's the mic drop.
by keeping them on the bench. Because I agree with what Kara said earlier. Eventually, word gets around, and well, it does, as has happened previously. Jess, have you got anything to finalise this section on? And then we're going to come to the final one before we wrap this one up.
Very much agree with everything that's been said. I think going back to kind of the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals, I don't necessarily have an issue with Vilde Risa going because, like we said, we finished second in the WSL, and I think potentially she was a player that was maybe not quite going to make it into the first team, and that's fine. That doesn't have to be as problematic as everyone kind of makes it. I know she was a fan favourite, and it's a bit crappy when your favourite leaves, but she probably wasn't actually, if we're being realistic, wasn't the right fit for the team. That doesn't mean that I'm not really hopeful that she's out there smashing it. And again, that does not mean that how this trade deal happened should have ever happened. If you don't want a player in your team, just list them for transfer. You don't have to do this bizarre trade where you pull in someone else and then never play them. In terms of actual usefulness of the trade, it very much reminded me of the was it Sanchez Mkhitaryan trade with Arsenal, where I thought that was the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals, but this might have actually excelled. And I'm just, on a kind of human level, I'm really sad for Irene. I can't comment on her playing ability because, quite frankly, I don't know, because she did not play for us particularly. And I don't think having a total of 100 minutes over an entire season is enough to judge someone. So I'm just really sad that as a club, we would do that to a player that's kind of in the prime of their playing career. You know, football careers are short. You haven't got time to be going to a club and sitting on the bench for a season because you reach a point where you don't have that many seasons left. And especially true for someone that's trying to get into a team like the Spanish team, who are absolutely stacked with quality and have got a lot of quality youngsters coming through. That is a huge hit. I know that she might not have been a starter, but even just to be that kind of rotation player, that is a huge hit to then not even make it into the team at all. So I think leaving is absolutely the best thing that she can do. And I hope that she goes on and has a fantastic career and gets back into the Spanish team. Only want the best for her. But in terms of a player, I really can't comment on her because we never saw enough. And I'm hoping that this next season coming, we won't do this, like buying a player for a year and then wasting them. Because again, just on a human level, that is just rubbish to see. You don't want to be buying players in for them to get 100 minutes throughout the whole season. That is pointless. You might as well not bother because that's just, you're not even getting like a token game here or there. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that concerns me about United, because like we've all already said, if that starts getting round, if we have another season like that where we get a player or two and then see them go without playing them, who is going to want to come to United? Because footballers talk, agents talk, managers talk, and we will very quickly just get ourselves blacklisted. Clearly that has not happened now because, like we said, we've got some fantastic signings coming in. So yeah, just fingers crossed that now Polly Bancroft is far, far away. That won't happen again.
No, exactly. It just makes things harder when you go into negotiations, doesn't it? And I think I will just add, Jennifer, on your point there about Mary. Zellum didn't really get a choice whether she left or not. So I will add that. But I think Mary was always going to leave. And Mary was right in what she put in her statement as well. The club is going to go into a transition. As I said, new captain, new goalkeeper next season, a few new players, potential new manager in a year's time, and a new structure above that as we're currently seeing now. So I think she is right. And she was always, I think, going to go. So I don't think they're quite comparable. And I see, Highland, you referenced the Spanish article, another one you're on about. I read that the other day as well. And I think there's no doubt there was issues between. There always is. You look at every single club, there's an issue between a player and managers. My worry is that there's more at United around Mark and so on. But as I said, I think we're going into a big season now. You know, as I said before, Mark's essentially on performance review next season. Hence, he only got a year's contract. So it's a big season for him and also for his treatment of players as well that are maybe on the fringes. I was just about to say that, NC. Why we've not mentioned Ella Toon once in the chat, and there's a lot of talk about Ella. I don't quite know.
I'll be less worried about Ella Toon and more about Ivan Toney, who appears to be being signed by United with him by some of these people. It's been quite a moment.
I was going to say, there's been fair play to you all. There's been a lot of conversations amongst yourself, which I absolutely love to see as well. My last question then, we've kind of briefly touched on this, but TJ did ask earlier on talking about triggers. Since we triggered Keats' extension, do we keep her, or if not, do we sign another forward? Keris, I'll just ask you in terms of what your thoughts overall on this are, because we've triggered her extension for a year, so she's going to be here next season if we don't accept an offer for her. So this does now mean that she will require a fee. If she is to sell. What's your overall thoughts? Can you see her staying next season? Do you think we need another forward if she stays? Do you think we need a forward if she goes? What's your kind of thoughts overall on this whole situation?
I definitely don't think we need another forward if she stays. I think she's top quality forward. She's our top goal scorer this season. If she does go, because it looks like there was a lot of talk about her moving to America and so on and so forth. If that does happen, then I think it could be worth looking at. But again, it's got to be with that intention of either it's a young forward who is happy to be like a squad player and who we're going to develop, or it's just that would be my ideal profile. Will be a young forward we're going to actually develop. What I don't want is us bringing in a forward for the sake of we've let a forward go, or we've let a forward go, so we've got to bring another one in. It doesn't need to be 1 in, 1 out if we don't actually need it, if all they're going to do is sit on the bench. So I'd be happy if I would love Keats to stay for the next year that we've triggered her extension for. And if she does, we definitely don't need another forward, in my opinion. If she does decide to go, it'll be a shame. But unless we are going to bring in someone like, everyone's talking about Carolyn in the chat again, that would be great. But unless it's a straight up starter like that, I would like to see us bring in like a young forward who we can develop and who's happy to kind of have less minutes in the meantime.
Barry, I know you've got to quickly shoot off. You got anything to quickly add on this one before you run away to another show?
Yeah, one word, keep. And if you wanted an addition to that, sell for lots of money.
There we go. Nice and short. Barry's live on All Forums in 5 minutes. So once we wrap this one up, head over there and make sure you give that a watch, talking about the fixtures in more detail from a broader WSL point of view with opposition fans and all that kind of thing on that channel. So make sure you go and watch that in just a moment once we've wrapped this one up. Jess, I'll throw it over to you then. Keats, what are you thinking at the moment? Her.
I'll be honest, I basically agree completely with what Keris said. I'm kind of happy if she stays because she had a fantastic season last season. I think she's still got a lot to offer. But equally, now we've triggered her extension. If someone did want to come and make an offer, then I think, like Keris said, I'd either want like a full-on already made in her prime strike. You're not going to turn someone down like Carolyn. Although I'm pretty sure, is she still injured? Because didn't she do her ACL?
She's been back. I think she's just come back.
Must have just come back. But if that means that she is at a cheaper price, then also an option. But also getting a young player in to develop, nothing wrong with that. I'm kind of indifferent either way. I think I'd like to see her stay, to be honest, because I think she just had a really good season last season. And I think having someone of her experience as well, you know, she's Champions League winner, played all over kind of the world almost. Having that kind of player just bolsters the team in a lot of ways. And I think players like her offer a lot behind the scenes as well that we kind of don't think about a lot. And I think getting rid of too many players like that, so obviously we've already lost Mary Earps, we've lost Zellum. I think keeping a player like Keats on would probably be more beneficial, even if it is just having a cooler head that's been through everything before around the changing rooms. And she, like I said, she had a fantastic season last year. I know she might have kind of tapered off towards the latter stages, but quite honestly, so did everyone else. So, you know, she's clearly still got a lot to offer the squad. So, do you know what? I've talked myself into the keeping camp. So, yeah, I wanted to stay.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit torn on this, to be honest. I think I'm not against either way. I think if we get a decent fee for her, then not against that. As long as we replace, I think that's the big thing. I think if she goes, we need another forward in my eyes. If she stays, not against that. She was our top scorer last season. I did say we'd lose a lot of goals if we let that go as well. And I don't think she would be the starter next season. I think with Mallard and Turland there as well, I don't think she's going to be the one to rely on next season in terms of the goals. Whereas the season just gone, she was very much the kind of the main source of goals on that one. And I am very surprised we've not, because we don't usually announce contract triggers, and we announced Keats' trigger obviously last week, the same day as Guerrero. But Williams has nothing. So I really don't know. I assume she's here for next season. But, you know, we've not heard anything official. So we'll just roll with that. You asked about Strutt's contract. So it's not up. He's already announced he's leaving at the end of next season. So he is definitely leaving Wolfsburg. So the timelines match up if he was to come in at United in terms of when he said he's leaving and potential Mark Skinner going after after the end of his year as well. So there's a few things there as well to potentially keep an eye on. I don't know, James. I really don't know. But we shall see. It's been a busy few weeks. Maybe they're just taking some time off now. I don't think they are, because I think we're potentially going to get a couple more in the next kind of few weeks, but we shall see. And yes, she's done all the promo shoots and stuff like that as well. So one would assume that she is here for next season. And yes, that is probably the case, but we've not announced it. We should. Oh dear. Maybe. I wouldn't be against that. I actually think keeping Rach for another season would do wonders for the likes of Turland. So I think Turland's still a young forward. You know, she's learning off Hegerberg in the Norway camp, and potentially learning off, Rachel Williams and all that can offer as well at United. I think that's not too bad forwards to be learning off, is it? If you're a young striker coming through the ranks there.
I also think like Rachel Williams, the problem that we are so blessed not to have with her is the problem that we have with so many people who go, oh my God, where's she going to fit in? Is she going to be happy being on the bench? Is she going to be a pain about it? Or not be a pain about it, but you know what I mean? Is she going to be unhappy being on the bench all the time? This is just not an issue we have with her, because she is so happy to play that impact role, which is so, and she does it beautifully. And that's such an underrated and rare quality in a player that I really want to see her stay. I think she's a really positive influence on the squad, and she does a job for us, and she does it very well.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, gee. Yes, I agree, is what I'm to say. Jeez, that was something. We'll wrap it up there. We're going for 90 minutes or so. It's been amazing. It's been good to be back doing a live show. We've not done too many. We'll be doing a few more lives over the next kind of couple of weeks. The draft show, by the way, that is coming very soon. We're really excited to do that. So potentially next Monday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Make sure you're following these lovely two people. Following All for United WFC on every platform. It's literally All for United WFC. There will be. I don't know whether I can speak about them yet. I just say keep an eye on the next kind of week or so, and we'll see some coming out from more reliable sources and things like that. Make sure you're hitting the like button. It helps us more than you realise. If you're not already subscribed, could you please hit that subscribe button? That would be amazing, so we can hit 3K before the end of the year. That's a little target I've set myself on this one. So if you could, that would be massively appreciated. As well as I said, follow on our socials, all for United WFC. If not, we shall see you guys in the next one.